Hello, this is a Bechstein Model 10 upright piano made in 1905 in rosewood cabinet, and it's in stock. It's one of our favourite Bechsteins to get into stock, and I'll explain why in a minute. But first of all, let's focus on the ivory keys, which are perfect actually and have a very beautiful grain to them. I don't know if you'll be able to pick that up on the video here. I'll try and zero in a bit. The fronts are a bit dappled, but that's quite common with Bechsteins. But the overall impression is wonderful, natural ivories. You can see from the pedals that there hasn't been huge amounts of wear on the piano. If there is, there's always a great difference between the right and the left hand, because that's the one that gets used the most. So not had a huge amount of wear, and the casework is generally in very good condition. We haven't repolished this piano, but it looks pretty integral. You can just see a slight fade line here where the lid's been held up, and that's quite common. If you've got a piano, then keep the lid down some of the time. That stops it from fading unevenly, but in general, very good. You can see where the sconces were here. These were candlesticks, and all pianos of that age would have had them. The top of the piano looks very nice veneer too. So the casework and the veneer is perfect. There's nothing missing at all, and the polish is very good. It has the swing style music stand, which is on the older upright pianos with book holders, and is higher up than the normal music stand, which I think is better in terms of posture and viewing generally. And this folds in, as you can see, so you can fold it away completely. Now, as the piano's not had a huge amount of use, the piano is very good internally. Original strings and hammers here. They've been refaced and voiced, so a very pleasant sound. What we like about Bechstein 10 is it just has a sweet singing tone that is unique to Bechstein 10 and Model 5, but Model 5 does suffer from the rest plank. We've had to change many of them on Model 5s where they don't seem to cope with central heating, but these Model 10s normally is fine. Obviously you have to look after the piano and make sure the room is not too hot, because any piano will dry out, but generally perfect. There's one string here that's been replaced very well, because you can't tell the difference tone wise. So if we listen to the notes next to it, it's identical, but you can tell the string's been replaced by the way the copper's wound slightly differently at the end there. And this one also has been replaced, and not such a good replacement in terms of the length of the string, but the tone is very good. So there's not any appreciable difference, a slight difference. Obviously, if we were going to restring the whole piano, then we put new strings on, but it's not essential and would add a lot to the cost of the piano. So it has original strings, which are very pleasant. You can tell it's got original strings because the tuning pins are the original size. They're quite small and they're all tight, so that's very important. So there's good news about the piano. I like to have original pianos. They're always something about the original manufacturer's specification that fits very well. If you listen to the tone there, hardly any difference on the break point. The advantage of this, oh by the way, this is straight strung, I forgot to mention. The advantage being that you can have longer dampers here. We've mentioned this before in other videos and compared straight and overstrungs. Now that means the damping is better, and round here the strings are actually longer than the Model 4, sorry, this is Model 10. The Model 9 is the overstrung, and the strings are longer here. We've done that on a video before, but down here they're quite short, so the bottom bass doesn't sound very strong, but it's used mostly in the octave anyway, and in the octave it's very pleasant. So if you're going to play solo bass, it's not so good, but in the octaves it sounds very pleasant indeed. Now today I've done some voicing on the hammers. Some of them were a bit having refaced. They were a little bit too bright. Of course they can be made less bright still, that's easy to do. Can't go the other way so easily. In order to voice the hammers, we've turned my needles holder here sideways. It can be turned sideways as well as straight for grand pianos, and then we can voice here and just gently voice down to about 1.5 millimeters maximum at the end of the tips here, just to voice down a little bit. You have to be careful not to overdo it, but the advantage of the upright is you can play the note straight away. On a grand you've got to pull the action back out, so it's very simple to voice upright pianos. As well as the tone, we've regulated the touch on the piano, so that it's largely to do with regulation, because with these hammers the touch is beautiful, very smooth, and say one of our preferred models is Model 10 Bechstein. And if we watch, I'm just pressing two keys together to see that the dampers lift off halfway when the hammers are halfway to the strings. That's correct. You can have them a bit later if you want to have the action lighter, but this action is on the light side. I say it was about 45 grams, and normal would be 50 grams. So this is ideal for an occasional player, not too hard to play. And you can see the dampers coming off, all of them, about when the hammers are about halfway to the string. Oh, and with the pedal, of course, that's important. They all come off together. So regulation. The other factor is how close would the hammer get to the string before it sets off. You want to get as close as possible and still working. So we've done that as well. You see the hammers are getting very close, setting off, and then checking at about that point. So very controllable. So that's a Bechstein Model 10 upright piano, 129 centimeters tall, made in 1905, and one of our preferred models of Bechstein. Of course, they vary a lot, and some of them are very worn, but this one's not been used too much at all, so there's plenty of life left in it. And such a sweet tone they've got around here. And right through to the tenor, with quite long strings for the tenor for this height of piano. As we mentioned, it's straight strung, so the bottom bass on its own doesn't sound wonderful. Then strings aren't that long, but the tenor area, which is important for melodies, there's a very warm sound. And the touch is very well set up on the Model 10. It was a very popular model at the time, so we managed to find enough that aren't too worn to not have to fully restore them. Sometimes we do fully restore them as well. There's a 5-year guarantee on the pianos, and really don't expect anything to go wrong with the piano. As long as you don't dry it out too much, then this piano will serve you for at least 20 years. And as I say, really pleasant sounding piano. So if you want to buy the piano without coming to see it, we prefer you to come to see it, obviously, but I know that a lot of people can't make the journey, so I can guarantee that it's an excellent instrument. Thank you very much for listening.